welcome to ET Garage. Today's video is going to be about the Corvette and why the front end is sitting so low. Okay, as you can see, my Corvette is sitting a little bit low. If you're not familiar with the C4 Corvette, this should be probably up around here somewhere, this lip. And what happened was I took a road trip out to from Pennsylvania, my home in Pennsylvania, to the U.S. Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. Hit a bunch of really rough interstate and construction sites there. Then I went from the U.S. Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, down to Bowling Green, Kentucky, to the Corvette Museum. Hit a bunch of construction sites and really rough interstate there. And it was fine when I got there, looking back at the pics. And then I left there, hit a little bit more rough roads, and a really bad dip I could best describe. And anyway, on the way back home, and what appears to have happened is the leaf spring broke, and I ended up driving it all the way home, basically riding on the bump stops. It handled fine, if you're wondering. It was a little swirly, but not bad, and had a little bit more body roll, but it wasn't too bad, actually. Of course, over sharp bumps, it was pretty jolty, but it made it home fine. And the only place the tires rubbed was right here. That's it. And on the only on the driver's side. The passenger side didn't rub at all. So it just hit a little bit, and that was on bad bumps, and didn't do any damage to the tire or anything like that. So I'm lucky there. I'm lucky I made it home, really. It drove and handled pretty decent, other than you know, had a little bit more body roll, and the bumps were a lot more harsh, of course, because it was already bottomed out. But other than that, it wasn't actually too bad. Anyway, let me show you what I'm going to have to do. Okay, basically what I am going to have to do is jack this front end up, way up in the air. You got to get it good and high, because well, taking this one out won't be hard, because it's probably busted. I won't know completely what it's like until I get it out, but get it up in the air. I got to take the wheel off to one side. I need to then disconnect the shocks just on the one side, and disconnect the lower ball joint, and probably the tie rod, and then lower the lower control arm, and then I should be able to slide the spring out. I believe that's how I did it, because I actually replaced the spring once before. The original spring, at around 170,000 miles. This car has over 245 or 46,000 miles on it now. And the original spring at around 170,000 miles, I think it was starting to sag. And so I replaced that with a new one that I got from Vet Brake Products. They're no longer in business, and it wasn't, in my opinion, it was never an exact fit, but it worked, and it worked really well. It rode good, and it handled good. And I noticed recently it seemed like that spring was starting to sag, and apparently not much though. But then after this road trip and hitting those really bad roads and way home, it gave up the ghost, I guess. But anyway, I'll have to get to work on that, get this in the air and all that good stuff, and get that out. And I have to locate another one. There's only two sources for a new front spring. Okay, Van Steel makes new ones, and they're over $700 for that. And you can pick, and the only other source is to pick up a good used one. So hopefully I can find a good used one off a low mileage one, and that's probably what I'll do. The only other alternative would be to put the old saggy one back in and somehow block that up so it doesn't sag. But the fact that after all those years it's sagging probably means that's going to give up the ghost soon too. So let me get to work on this, and I'll get up in the air, the wheel off, and then I'll show you about taking the spring out, and I'll show you the original spring and this spring, and hopefully I'll get a spring right away so I can get back on the road. Alright, I got the wheel off, and got it jacked up, got the wheel off. I slid under there to see where it was broken, and the spring isn't broken. And as I jacked this up, the A-arm went from the full up position slowly down to the full down position. So I figured it was just going down under its own gravity and the spring was broken. But when I crawled under there, there's no spring broken. I then put the jack underneath the A-arm and jacked the A-arm up to see how much slop it had in it. And jacking the A-arm up, it just lifted the whole body of the car up instead of the A-arms going up and down. So I'm thinking there's another problem, and I think the problem might be the shocks. So I'm going to have to get the shock off first and see what I can find, if I can find anything wrong with them. They are Ride Tech shocks. They do have a 1,000,000-mile warranty, so hopefully they're covered under the warranty. It could be something went wrong with the valving inside. So we'll find out here shortly, I hope. Okay, as you can see, the shock is functional, and it is going up on rebound. This is on the lowest rebound setting by itself. I actually do have to pull it up the rest of the way, so I'm not sure if that's correct. I don't remember them being like that when they were new. I'm going to have to contact Ride Tech and ask them about it. These do have a 1,000,001-mile warranty on them, so the warranty is still good. And so maybe they'll send me a new set, or who knows. But in the meantime, I got to figure out the problem, what the rest of the problem is on there. I could just put the wheel back on, put it down on the ground, and see what happens. That's the only thing I could think of. And then, you know, I'll have to drive it back and forth because front wheels, most independent suspensions, when you put them on the ground, the wheels not only go up and down independently, but they move in and out a little bit. So you need to rotate the car, move the car back and forth in order to establish its ride height after you lower it back down on the ground. Otherwise, they'll stay up in the air. I don't see me being that lucky as far as that spring being good, but I'm going to try a few other things. I'm going to try maybe putting a jack right under the spring itself and jacking the spring up with a board and see if it goes up and down. But when I tried going up and down before, it lifted the whole car instead of the spring going up and down. I don't know, I'll have to start disconnecting things and see what I can figure out. I also need to contact Ride Tech about the shocks, so hold on and I'll be back shortly. I hope. Okay, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I stuck a block of wood underneath the spring itself and jacked that up. The spring actually came up very easy, and normally it doesn't come up that easy. So I'm going to go back to assuming it is the spring. It's possible it is broken under there, but not where I could see it. So I'll have to go through the process of disassembling and getting that out and investigating it further. I was actually hoping that wasn't the problem, would save me a lot of money, but in the meantime, I'm going to get this apart. I'm also going to contact Ride Tech about the shocks because I don't think it should be that way. But anyway, let me get to it. Okay, I got that side disassembled pretty much. And one thing, it's been a while since I did this. That being said, everything came apart real easy, and the reason that it came apart easy is because I had the suspension part years ago, and when I put it back together I used anti-seize. That being said, even though I used anti-seize on these lower shock bolts, they still get water in them, and you can see where they're all corroded. So I'm going to use marine grease on these when I put them back in, see if that helps. But getting back to this is where I'm at. Basically, these are what hold the spring up in there. Sorry I didn't get a video, but there's two bolts that come down, and the heads are kind of blind. You can get to them, they're difficult. And one thing I forgot is you should take these off first before you start disassembling and take the tension off the spring, and I didn't, so I had to jack it back up in order to get this one off. The one on the other side is giving me difficulty, and that's because one of the bolts are spinning freely. So I got to see if I can get to it with I believe I can get to it with a wrench. It's difficult to get to, it's buried in there, and see if I can get that off, which I should be able to. So hopefully I'll get this done and get that out. Did have to disconnect the shock on the other side. I just disconnected the lower bolts, and they're corroded like those, so it's a good thing I did. And I'm not sure if I'm going to have to disconnect the lower arm on that side or not. We'll find out here shortly. But let me get this other bracket off, and then I'll see where I'm at. I'll show you where I'm at. Let's put it that way. All right, I got that other one off. It took a little shenanigans with the wrench, but I was able to get a 13mm wrench on the top. The bottom uses a 15mm. I use an impact on that and just zip it right off, and it worked. I got lucky there. I now need to lower this and see if I can get the spring out. I'll probably have to, like I was saying, I'll probably have to disconnect the lower control arm on the other side too, but let's see how lucky I get. Okay, the spring is in fact busted. You can see it right there. Like, you can't bend it by hand, but if you stand on it, and you can see that crack. So that's where it busted, right there. So it's definitely the spring, and I'll have to order another one. I have the other one down in the basement, the original one. The original one has a lot more arch to it. And because of that arch, when you go to pull it out, if you have the original base model 90 spring, you actually got to get the car a lot higher in the air, because it comes out like this, and it'll hit the ground. So you got to get it way up in the air or on a lift. At least now I know what the problem is. Oh, I'll get back to you.